phones if you're not talking. Be courteous, and also mute your microphones if you're not speaking. We would also like for you to use the chat features at the top if you have questions and or want to make comments. And of course, unmute yourself for any questions or comments that you have. The recording has already started. And the presentations from our guest will be sent out to you along with the recording as soon as we can get it out. Want to first start off by introducing one of our esteemed guests today. We have the pleasure of having Mr. Gene Ritter, who is the Residency Program Manager for the North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority. He has been so kind as to contact us and want to provide information today to our financial aid community and all that are listening, some insight on RDS and financial aid, and especially as it relates to our active duty military. And I believe that he's also going to share some valuable resources with you. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the microphone and the screen over to Mr. Ritter.
Thanks, Brenda. Can you just give me an idea about how much time you've allotted me? I don't want to overstep my allowance there.
Well, sorry, I muted myself. But Mr. Ritter, this meeting is scheduled for an hour, so okay. You can take, we'll give you up to 30 minutes. Okay. And then we'd like to pass it on to the rest of our SIA team.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share a presentation, and I'll have you send it out after we're done. I'll send you the file. Let's see here. Okay, should be able to see that, right? Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay,
yes.
Got it.
Yes,
thanks.
We can see it.
All right, I'm going to go through some of this very quickly to send on to you because it's part of a longer presentation. But some of you may be familiar, but I've realized we have regular calls with our liaison, residency liaison folks. And some of this falls kind of in their lap, depending on the workflow at your campus about how to handle campus exceptions. But recently I've had a lot of concerns come to me where there was a misunderstanding or a lot of questions about a campus role in some of the tuition exceptions. So I want to make sure we have time for that and to handle questions you have. So just quickly, there's different roles here, but basically on the RDS side, there's a centralized service that provides a residency determination. Campuses can, under certain circumstances, allow for a tuition exception. And there's an important distinction here because you will see two letters. A lot of times you'll see II, in, or out, in. The first one pertains to the residency determination. Those things are locked in statute. That will never change. However, there are in law, some of them pertaining to financial aid issues, such as a veteran's exception. Some of them have nothing to do with that. There are some tuition exceptions provided in law, okay, that you may be able to, at a campus level, evoke. They all have specific requirements and a certain tracking. So I'm going to jump ahead to part of this here is that the student, and by the way, a lot of times we hear the students say, well, I have a special circumstance. If you've ever seen the process, it builds in just about every scenario that is mentioned in law or the guidebook about what if someone was orphaned or the state of foster care or, and so forth. They live long-term with their grandmother rather than the parent. Those are built into the system. RDS also reviews the immigration status of the student. And here's where this differs very much about, from what you may be used to in FAFSA for like Pell eligibility. We will take just about any status unless the federal definition says it may not establish a residency. So example would be they could have a visa as a visitor, but the law says they can't establish a residence. They're just here temporarily. So there's a myriad of statuses where they might not be eligible for some financial aid, but they could get in-state tuition. There's a scenario where it's a tuition exception, however, it's handled by RDS, and that has to do with active duty military stationed in North Carolina. The other exceptions we really can't handle because it depends on time limits or assignment of a benefit and monitoring that didn't expire. But this one's pretty open-ended, where if they're claiming another state as their permanent residence, if they're claiming North Carolina, they're going to get in-state no matter what. But these are folks where the service member is claiming another state as their permanent home, but they're stationed here. So they would be a non-resident out of state, okay, but they're eligible for in-state tuition. I'm going to come back to this one in a little more detail about the campus's role, but RDS can handle it because basically as long as they're enrolled, they can continue that, even if the service member gets transferred. And then there's one for North Carolina National Guard, but in practice, we seldom give an exception because most of them live here and they're going to meet the requirements. So RDS can handle these because there's no other requirement. The other exceptions require a benefit or they have a very strict time limit of 1 semester or 2 semesters. So RDS handles these up front. We also are responsible for any documentation for anything we do. The effective date is the date they submit to us. That's what we pass on to the campus. While there's an expiration date, that's only for a new enrollment. Once a student is attending, as long as they don't break continuous enrollment, they won't generally need to come back to RDS. Some people are sending them all back. You don't need to. You can, if there's a reason or if a student wants to come back to have their determination reviewed. So let's look at those tuition exceptions for students who can't meet the regular residency criteria. So we talked about the active duty is determined by RDS. So again, this is where they're claiming another state and we honor what they have on file with the military. And there's a form they fill out. And in fact, the form cautions them that if you change your state, you know, there's implications, including for in-state tuition for colleges and universities. So they're claiming another state. So that's going to exclude them generally from a lot of. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. The exception here can apply to the spouse and dependent. Generally, they have to be eligible the first day of classes, but there's a recent provision. If they graduate from high school, the service member gets transferred before they start college classes in the fall, they can keep it. It does not require any kind of educational benefit or anything from the military, so that's why RDS can handle that. There's a provision for North Carolina National Guard. We rarely use this because most of them in practice have been here and that they are going to meet regular residency criteria. However, there are a small number.
I need for financial aid reinstated for.
There's a small number of students who live, let's say, in South Carolina, and they're affiliated with a Guard unit in Charlotte, so they can get that out in. In this case, it doesn't apply to spouse and dependent. The law says the Guard member only. Okay, so RDS handles that because, again, there's no other requirement other than that affiliation. The other exceptions all have to be handled by the campus. They're very specific in law of what they, and they're different for each sector. UNC has their own, community colleges have theirs. They're listed in our official guidebook, which is a public document, and in a campus guide. They're very specific in terms of their requirements and what the campus needs to do to monitor and handle those. The workflow is going to depend on your campus. A lot of these don't require, and they may not have any financial aid award. So they're usually handled by someone in the registrar's office or in, enrollment, admission. So that's up to your campus to determine. And some of them have tracking responsibilities. The major one that's going to have, involve financial aid is for the veterans exceptions. And I'll go into that in a little more detail because it requires careful monitoring about, do they have it each term? So first RDS with regard to the veteran, here I'm including any eligible family member that's assigned a benefit. We first screen to see, are they a North Carolina resident? They meet the criteria, great. That doesn't have anything to do with it. And I'm just talking about the residency aspect of this now, not the financial aid award. So there's not a blanket tuition exception in law that just because someone was a veteran, that they are going to get in-state status. There is not. I'll repeat that again because some colleges say they're doing it. Well, that's not in law. It requires that they're using a benefit. So if they have it, you always change their determination and award that. So those have to be handled by the campus because we don't know if they in fact were assigned a benefit, if they want to use it. We've had people that have one but want to not use it at this time and save it. That's fine, but they're not eligible for a tuition exception. They have to meet regular residency criteria. So you need to monitor these at least annually about if someone has used it up, and it's gone, that they not continue to get that in-state exception. They need to, in theory, they're supposed to be establishing domicile here in North Carolina anyway. So again, I want to emphasize it's the benefit, the award that triggers availability. We do pass on if it's a non-resident and they're not meeting North Carolina criteria for residency, a flag. It's purely informational that says VEDEX or Veterans Exception. Okay, it's really informational to you. Some campuses want to reach out to these folks proactively and try to reach them. It's not a guarantee that they have or will use a benefit. That's their self-report. Likewise, I've had one or two situations where a campus contacts me saying, well, it doesn't say Veterans Exception. Well, it's self-report. If they don't have it or they say they're not going to use it but change their mind, that's just purely informational. And when they're awarded, you always adjust the tuition. So I want to talk about, and I want to go through these very quickly and then allow plenty of time for discussion, but we'll come back. I'm sure I'll get questions on those. The other exceptions, okay, a lot of these have nothing to do with a particular award, but they are available for community colleges. I also want to emphasize that these exceptions do not automatically apply if they go somewhere else. Each campus will do this. For example, these are not honored by any UNC campus, and we get students that transfer expecting it, and they will not. Okay, they have different exceptions. Sorry, I don't know why my mic keeps cutting off. So if you have a North Carolina business and they want to pay directly 100% for an employee, they can do that. This is, by the way, probably the only exception. Well, there's one other path for military, but the only provision that would help someone who does not have any kind of eligible immigration status or was not lawfully admitted. There's no requirement for this one. Business or military transfer families, I would not use this for active duty military because if they're stationed here, you're going to use that exception. This would be a civilian employee. Okay, so a civilian employee, but there's a strong cap here by law. You cannot exceed 1% of your non-residents. So for a smaller college, you're talking about 1 or 2 students a semester. Many cases. Students sponsored by a nonprofit. A lot of these, and I'm just summarizing the details. I'll send it to you, but that campus guide, whoever your residency liaisons have the details about what documents they need. But most of these for non-citizens require that they had to have shown lawful admission to the US. There are 2 that are more commonly given now that have to do with high school graduates. There's one for non-citizens, and again, if it has to show lawful admission, maybe they don't have a current status that expired or they're applying for one. But the That has to be documented. The one for US citizens is more recent. Again, it's got to be a public high school, and it's only valid for 12 months following the date of high school graduation. The legislature hemmed and hawed about this, and they said, well, we'll give them 12 months to be able to see if they can meet the criteria. And finally, one for federal law enforcement officers stationed here, but it's for specific courses. Again, all of these are detailed in a campus manual. I just want you to have some familiarity with that. There's one from the UNC sector that the community colleges will acknowledge, and it has to be someone who is an eligible UNC employee. You have to follow what's in their law about the requirements. It's got to be a permanent employee. We sometimes see this from students attending a UNC campus, originally from out of state, trying to get in state. They try to say I'm an employee of the university, and we find out they're like work study for 10 hours a week. That's not a full-time employee. And it was designed to help people who just move here to take a position in their first 12 months. But that's a possibility. I don't think you'll see many because they often get some free course tuition at their home institution. So when there's exceptions, that's when the campus has a requirement for tracking and for other requirements. So campus-based tuition exceptions, you've got to look at what that exception is. Or for example, the military, the veterans, you've got to evaluate at least once a year that they have a benefit. If it's used up and gone, that's it. I mean, they can either come and they have to meet criteria or revert to out of state. I mean, certainly if you could find another way to fund them, or if you have institutional foundation funds to do that, you can, but legally they lose the eligibility. There's, and then for the active duty exception, you know, you just have to look that they didn't stop out, but that's a campus responsibility that they keep that. That was one of the things that recently went up through the VA system when I came back to me is, no, that's a campus responsibility. There is no expiration to that as long as they're continuously enrolled. Okay. And again, more details are in the campus guide. What if they stop out for over a year and have to reapply, or if they graduate or look to go to another institution, they need a new evaluation. So the other thing is there are some time limited visas that might not get renewed, and those get flagged, and somebody at your campus, you know, has to run that and ensure that once they expire, you know, we're looking to see that they've been renewed. And I'll talk about statutory grace period. There's a provision, you need to coordinate this, you're in whoever handles this, but if a student had an in-state determination, but you become aware of a change, their visa expired, or they tell you, my family just moved to Virginia, can I finish my courses online? There's a process you need to work with RDS, okay? And they're eligible to keep a tuition exception at that point. But you need to notify RDS in a timely fashion because their state grant eligibility would cease. So there's a procedure for that. That's if they tell you or you become aware of it. So the official guidebook is on our public website. Okay. And the campus responsibility guide is it's an internal document. We'll send these to you. That's the one that whoever has a responsibility for tracking all these things at your campus, it walks them through or what documents are required. Okay. But since I know you get some questions about some of these exceptions or trying to help students with their financial package, we wanted to go through that. Okay, just quickly, changes and updates. The recent budget, the appropriations bill, I was watching, I haven't updated these because they snuck a couple things in there. One of them, if you hear that the provisions for the active duty military changed, yes, they did at a federal level, and now they're matching again. We actually were doing something that the Fed said it wasn't the original intent. We went above and beyond because originally that active duty provision only applied to the service member and dependents other than the spouse. We've always given it to the spouse. I had to research this in the legislature since 1984. They've updated the language to specifically include the spouse now, because I guess some states were not doing that. There's also provision for a certain type of foreign service worker to get the same provisions. Right now, I'm not aware of a single office in the state that would fall under that category, but we're going to build it into law. A couple of other minor ones, though, if anyone's on the line from Tri-County, you know you have a new pilot campus-based exception for your end. So those were the major changes. And then, as I said, we're going to send this on as contact information. If your question specifically grants, of course, you address it to those folks. If your question has to do with the residency determination, the student has access to a call center, to an email. All this is in here. We'll send to you. If it's a campus responsibility or exception, that would probably come to me. So that's a lot of information in a very quick time, but I wanted to put that out and now see what questions are there specifically, about what you do with the helping students with active duty or veterans, because those are the ones I tend to get a lot of questions about.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, this is Jay. I'm the Director of Financial Aid and Veteran Services at Sandhills. And I have a question about the military. So if they're using a benefit, but they are not physically here in North Carolina, do they still qualify for in-state? Because we can't certify them on an out-of-state.
So you're talking about veterans then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whenever, I guess that to me, the easy way to understand anytime you have a veteran's benefit is if they're certified for the benefit, you give them the exception. Now, we
Okay.
had this come up recently, and I don't know what the follow-up was. It was one of the UNCs who they had a student attending, receiving those benefits, but the student notified them they had moved to Virginia. And I said, well, you need to go up and talk to your state certifying officials and ask them, because to my mind, if they're still awarding and they feel it meets the requirements, you go by the award, because under federal law, you've got to make the adjustment if they're awarded. So if they're okay with it and continue certifying the award, I would give it to them, but confer with them if there's any question about eligibility for the award.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Jean, there's a question in the chat.
Okay.
And the question reads, our campus has had a few questions regarding veterans using a benefit, not active duty military, and campus responsibilities. Staff have been asking for military orders from these students, even though they have concluded their military service. Do we need anything additional on file for veterans using a benefit other than the certificate of eligibility or DD 214?
Okay, so I'll go
And-
back to what I said earlier about the veterans is what you're looking for. I wouldn't, it's not really an RDS issue in the sense that we've already determined they're a non-resident. Now, if they can meet the requirements in the meantime, have them come back so you won't have to track them for, an exception. But if they're certified, okay, then they're certified. So if there's any question about it, but I will say for the veterans, you have to be careful because they do come around and audit files. They have requirements about what documents you need, including, I know, the DD 214. I don't know why you would ask for any orders, because that if they're discharged now, they're not going to have a current order. Even if they were active duty, we take care of that. But whatever the requirements are for the award, I would view that separately from the residency determination, because it's tied to the federal law of what they're requiring for you to have on file when a student is awarded, just like you have to show what coursework they're taking. Does that help?
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions before we move on to our next SIA team. Going once, twice, three times. Thank you so much for your time and your attention today, Mr. Ritter. I will
Thank
point
you.
out to the financial aid community that Mr. Ritter will also be on a call tomorrow for Dr. Monty Hickman's team meeting. And I think that that group includes enrollment management, that group of folks. But if you all have any questions, and you're able to hop on that call, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Ritter will happily respond to you. But I do want to thank you again for your time today, Mr. Ritter, and we will let you go unless you want to hear more about financial aid.
All right, thanks for having me.
Simplification, complication.
Yeah, if you all have questions, just reach out.
All right,
Okay.
thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. And now, without further ado, we're going to turn the mics over to our SIA team to talk about the EFC to SAI. Those data numbers that you all received, you should have all gotten them by now. I sent them out to you on Friday, and they were for your individual institutions. So again, without further ado, I see Mr. Lineberry on the phone, and I see, I'm sorry, on the call, and I see Andrea Luton. We did invite Tracy Mitchell as well, and also Andrea Poole. So I'll let them take it away and handle things from here.
Thank you, Brenda. Andrea sends her regrets. She planned to be with us today, but she's feeling under the weather, so she's not. But again, she sends her regrets. And Tracy Mitchell is also not with us today. So you have Andrea Luton and me. And I think, Andrea, you were going to go first and maybe share some of the EFC to SAI data.
Yeah, absolutely. And good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting us to the meeting today. I'm glad to hear from Brenda that you all received your EFC to SAI reports, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to use them. But one of the things that we wanted to briefly do today, because I know that you have a very busy meeting, is to go over the actual model that we run and kind of show you some of the numbers that we share with you. So let me share my screen first of all. See, hopefully everyone will be able to see it. Can everyone see the screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. And I saw in the chat that some people were saying that the slides were not changing. I hope that's not the case here, but let me know if any of you are not able to see the numbers. But anyway, the brief overview of the EFC to SAI model is that we all know that EFC is going to be replaced by SAI in 24-25. And our office in particular has been looking at different models, trying to figure out which model to use to estimate the impact of this change here in North Carolina, mainly for our UNC and community college institutions. So we worked for community college specifically. We worked with the community college system to get enrollment data for all 58 community colleges for 22-23. And we also worked with Tracy from CFI to get FAFSA data. That is the data that we needed to combine in order to run the EFC to SAI model. And by the way, this model that we used was developed by Iowa College Aid. And again, it's just one of the models out there that is available, you know, to estimate the impact of the SAI change. I hope that you all, you know, receive your summary reports from this specific model. And if you look at your report, it's going to be very similar to this. And thank you so much to Lisa from Guilford Tech Community College, who gave me the okay to show her specific college as an example for today's meeting. But again, the model, the structure is going to be the same for everyone. It's just that the numbers are going to change. One of the main things that I want to make sure that we all pay attention to when we're reading and trying to interpret these numbers is the specific data sample that we were working with at the time of running the model. So for the model, we looked at students with a North Carolina address who completed a FAFSA and enrolled at your specific institution. for the 22-23 academic year. We looked at students with and without state grants, and we only looked at students that were first-time in college students. So we excluded students who already had a bachelor's degree. Okay, so I think it's very important when you are looking at these numbers, or if you decide to share these numbers with other folks at your institutions, specifically administrators, make sure that you explain to them the specific data sample that we use to run the model. So just very briefly, because I don't want to take too much of your time today, but I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page about what the different tables show. And by the way, when we ran the model, we got the results. We had a lot of data, and we went back and forth trying to figure out how to best analyze and summarize the data. And we try our best to make it user-friendly. But again, it's a lot of data. It can be overwhelming. And because today I have to go through this very briefly, if you have any questions about your numbers, during or after this call, please reach out. We're always available to answer any questions you may have. So anyway, the first few pages of the summary report for your specific community college is going to show some very, general breakdowns of some of the data that we have available through this model. The first table right here is just breaking down the information between students with and without grants. Again, so we looked at students with and without state grants. And this is the frequency is the count of students, and then we have the percent that they represent within the overall population, and the cumulative frequency or count and percent. Okay. The second table, we were also looking at dependency status to run the model. We looked at dependent students and independent students with and without dependents, and this is the breakdown of that specific category. The third table is just combining those two categories, students with and without grants, by dependency status. And one thing that I wanted to point out here, because I think sometimes can be confusing, is that this table specifically, you have, we are summarizing the data by subgroup first, and the subgroup is this subgroup right here. We have subgroup number 1 and subgroup number 2. And then we also have overall statistics or summaries for the entire population. Okay, so make sure when you're reading the tables that you look at the titles to make sure that you understand what the different numbers represent. Moving on to the next page, we also have information from this model regarding student age. And of course, every student has a different age, so we bucketed the students into age buckets or categories. And in this specific example here for this community college, it seems that 33% of the students are between the ages of 18 to 20, which is expected. And then we also combine that same information with whether the students have or don't have a grant. And again, we have the subgroup summaries and the overall summaries. And I know this looks like a lot of information, but it's just to give you a general idea of the type of students that you have at your institutions. Hopefully, with the goal of trying to help you better understand how the new SAI calculation is going to impact your students. The next couple of tables are related to number of students in college, which is also something that we take into consideration for financial aid. One thing to keep in mind is that when we are looking at students that are dependents, we have to look at the parents' number in college, and students that are independent, we have to look at the student number in college. So here we're just showing you the breakdown of those two different fields that are available in the data. The other thing that we also looked at is, the first generation category, whether the student is a first generation in college student, and we have the breakdown here, the count and the percent. The next couple of tables are related to the household size, which is also part of the financial aid calculation. And again, if the student is dependent, we look at parent household size, and we have the different breakdown. And then if the student is independent, we look at student household size. And the next few pages is where we get more into the actual EFC SAI transition and the results that we got from the model. Again, we try to summarize the data the best we could. So hopefully this is helpful. But pretty much what these tables mean is here we have the 3 different categories. These are the percent of students and the number of students whose SAI is going to be lower than the EFC. The SAI calculation is different than the EFC calculation. So we are trying to figure out or estimate how the new calculation is going to affect our students. The student circumstances are not going to necessarily change. It's just the way we are calculating their federal and state aid or need is going to change. A lot of the students, according to this model, their SAI is going to be lower than the EFC, right, for 60% of the population, which means that they're going to look needier in terms of financial aid. So this group of students right here, because their SAI is going to be lower than the EFC, they may be eligible for more financial aid, or they may be newly eligible for financial aid. The next group of students right here, their EFC and SAI are the same. We have 35%. Probably this group of students, their financial aid is not going to change much. And then the third group right here, the SAI is higher than the EFC. Again, the SAI calculation is different than the EFC. We know that number in college and small businesses and farms are not going to be taken into consideration for a lot of these new calculations. So this is a group of students who will potentially be affected by this new calculation. These students right here, because their SAI is higher than their EFC, may lose financial aid completely or partially. The next table right here is very similar. We're looking at the 3 different categories. The only thing that we're calculating here is the average or the mean difference between the SAI and the EFC. And the next few tables here, it's just giving you an idea of the additional data that we have available through the model and the different breakdowns. And this is going to help you, again, better understand the student population at your specific institution. We continue talking about EFC to SAI transition. This table right here is the top 10 buckets. We have a lot, we had to bucket students into EFC buckets and SAI buckets in order to be able to analyze the transition. These are the top 10 buckets with, most of the students. So you can see here that the bucket where you have most of the students, specifically for this institution, are students that are going from an EFC of 0 to an SAI of 0. The next bucket is students that are that have an EFC of 0 and they're going into a negative SAI number. So here they show you some of the, the buckets that have most of the students for your institution. You can see here that students are going from EFCs that are positive to SAIs that are negative. So those are the TEP-TON buckets. And then the next few pages are actually all the buckets. Again, we know this is a lot of information, but if you like numbers and you really want to get into, understanding your students, this is very useful information. The way you read these tables, you have EFC over here, you have SAI over here. So for students whose EFC is 0, where do they go? Well, they go into all these different buckets. This is the count of students. You can see that a lot of the students are going into a negative SAI or a 0 SAI. And again, the percentage and cumulatives. So we did the same summary for all the different EFC buckets, EFC of 1 through 1,000, EFC of 1,000 through 3,000, and so on, all the way to greater than 15,000. So you can see for the students that fall within these EFC buckets, where do they go? These are the different SAI categories. And the last page right here, this page is mainly related to the Consolidated State Grant. And I believe Kevin is going to be talking more about that in a few minutes. But pretty much looking at students who will potentially be eligible for the Consolidated State Grant based on the EFC and AGI caps that we have. So I did it for both AGI of 75,000 and also down here for AGI of 80,000, just to be able, to provide you with the two different scenarios. So if students who qualify for the Consolidated State Grant, if we're looking at EFC and AGI of 75,000, we have like 80% of students qualify for the Consolidated State Grant. If we switch to SAI, using the same parameters, we see that more students will be eligible for the Consolidated State Grant. And then if we change the AGI cap to 80,000, we also see a change between the EFC and SAI numbers. You can see here that with the new SAI calculations, more students will be potentially eligible for the Consolidated State Grant. So this is just a brief description of the summary that you should have with you for your specific schools. And again, thank you, Lisa, for giving me the okay to show Guilford Tech Community College as an example today. And again, we know this is a lot of information, and I'll be happy to answer any questions today, or if you want to reach out one-on-one, I'll be happy to meet with you. I have met with some of you one-on-one before, and we have gone through your numbers, and I'll be happy to continue doing so to make sure that everyone is able to understand their numbers and to be able to use them. And feel free to share these numbers with your administrators as needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I would like to open the floor up if there are any questions from the community right now. Feel free to ask. Going once, going twice,
Well,
three times.
Hey, this is Lisa at Guilford Tech. I just want to thank Andrea. She's been great about this, about sharing this information. And I know I just took that information just from page 5, where it shows the distribution, the percentage of how many people would benefit from this versus who would lose out. And my administration was really impressed. So thank you for making me look good, Andrea.
Thank you, Lisa, for volunteering.
Yeah. One thing that I want to remind everyone that we were working, when we run the model, we use enrollment data from 22-23. So these are not actual numbers. This is not the actual number of students who are going to be impacted because we're using old enrollment data. But this will give you an idea of how many students, or at least the percentage of students within your institutions who could potentially be impacted by this change.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to turn it over to Kevin. I know that he is anxiously awaiting us and has lots of good news and updates for us.
Thank you, Brenda. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So again, thank you for having us today. Andrea wishes that she was with us. Hopefully she's feeling better soon. I want to give you a really high level overview of where we're at for 24-25 so far. So you'll see the agenda. I want to talk about the 24-25 eligibility requirements and parameters. I want to talk about some required changes in 24-25 to align the next NC scholarship with the Pell Grant. And you'll notice I'm using Next NC Scholarship. This will be news to most of you, I think. The North Carolina Scholarship is becoming the Next NC Scholarship in 24-25. We've been working with APCO Worldwide, which is a marketing firm, and they've done a significant amount of market research, focus groups with families and students, surveys to determine what the scholarship name should be and how it best resonates with our students and our families. And so after all of that research was done, it was shared with the system offices, community college system, UNC system, SEAA. And so we have selected the Next NC Scholarship as the permanent name for the program beginning in 24-25. So NC Scholarship continuing for 23-24, but 24-25 we'll be looking to the Next NC Scholarship. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in terms of marketing, and I'll give you an example of what they call a mood board example of what some of the marketing may look like. So 24-25, very similar to the North Carolina Scholarship, we will have a base guarantee and a need-based supplement as before. What you'll see here is the AGI is changing. Andrea went over this a little bit. We're increasing the AGI up to 80,000 from 75,000. That means that more students will be eligible for the scholarship next year. We're leaving the SAI at 7,500, but even with doing that, we will see an overall increase in eligibility for students. So we're doing a lot of data analysis right now, but these two factors, 80,000 AGI and SAI of 7,500, have been agreed to by the system offices, and so those are definites for 24-25. So what this means is students will be guaranteed state and federal aid of at least $3,000 at the community college or $5,000 at a UNC. You'll remember that the guarantee for community colleges was $2,800 with the NC scholarship, so we're expanding that too up to $3,000. And then of course we're going to have the need-based supplement continuing, and that's additional aid available for the lowest income students in both systems. So this slide is marked as tentative. The things that are not tentative here are the AGI cap. So the AGI cap in 24-25 will be 80,000. The SAI cap will remain at 7,500, and the guarantee amount will be 3,000. What we're doing now is taking a look at our data analysis to determine what our supplements should be and where they should start and end within the payment chart. So the max supplement amount as it is right now is 2,000. That may change a little bit. We want to get your feedback on this as well. So feel free to give feedback today, or if you want to reach out to me, send an email. We'll be happy to get that feedback from you. This is very tentative. Again, this is not decided. We wanted to share it with you today to get your feedback on what we're potentially looking at. So if you're looking here, 400 to 2795 SAI, we're proposing that in addition to Pell for those students, the students receive $400. Now this is new territory. We're using the program budget to fund as many students as we can. So how much can we afford and how many students can we help? And so we're going down that SAI model in the way that we haven't before to say whatever the Pell is, we're going to increase that by $400 in state aid. And so the point at which the $5,000 stops between Pell and the $400 is around the $27.95 SAI. And so from that point, $27.96 to about $4,999, the student would receive $5,000 between Pell and state funds. And then from there, as we do now, we'll need a slope because we can't afford to fund everyone out to the 7,500. And so from the 4,999, the slope would start at 5,000. It would end at 6,500. So it would be taking those students that are receiving that $5,000 between Pell and state funds and reducing that down to the guarantee, where the guarantee would kick in at 6,501 to 7,500 SAI. So we're plussing Pell up with $400 for the very neediest students. Again, that could change. We'll see how far we can go with that. Then we'd have $5,000 between Pell and the state funds for EFCs above that. And then we start our calculated supplement based on a slope start and a slope end. Again, that's just because we can't afford to fund everyone all the way down to 7,500. And then from 6,501 to 7,500, the guarantee would be 3,000. So again, that's tentative. Welcome any feedback that you have, any questions with that. So we will need to make some required changes in 24-25 based on what's happening with the Pell Grant. Of course, we all know Pell was tied to EFC. Pell is now going to be a maximum or a minimum or a calculated Pell with SAI. So we will not have the advantage of the EFC payment table and schedule, for Pell and the NC scholarship like we do now. So instead, we will have a formula, and the formula will simply be the guarantee plus the supplement. The calculated supplement minus Pell will be the state award. And the state grant system will handle that. It will calculate Pell, it will calculate the guarantee, it will calculate the supplement based on SAI, and it will provide the award that the student would receive. Of course, SAI is replacing EFC, so we're going to replace the EFC in the formula, particularly important for the supplement determination for the neediest students, as we looked at on the previous slide for the scholarship award. And then just like with Pell, of course, currently awards are calculated at full-time, 3/4 time, and half-time. With Pell being calculated based on a credit hour enrollment situation, we're also going to move the next NC scholarship. That says NC scholarship, that should have been updated, sorry. And it will be calculated by credit hour enrollment as well, with 6 to 12 credit hours, 6 credit hours being the minimum required to receive a scholarship. Randy Massey and Tracy Mitchell have worked on this, and I know that they would have some updates. I'm sorry Tracy isn't with us today to give you more details on exactly where they're at with that and how it will work in the state grant system. So many of you have probably seen this on cfnc.org. There's a federal and North Carolina aid calculator out there right now for the North Carolina scholarship. We will be updating this for 24-25. So hopefully this will be a simple and straightforward tool that students can use to determine how much federal aid they'd receive and how much state aid they'd receive. We'll also be linking out to an SAI estimator and putting all this together in as streamlined a process as possible to help those students just go to this website, type in a little bit of information, and determine how much money they'll be eligible for. So this is brand new. I don't think any of you have heard about this potentially from Brenda or JW. We are going to fund the summer term as a regular term beginning in 24-25, so summer of 2025 in the state grant system. We do have a decision point. One of the things we'd like to get from you today is feedback regarding the decision point. Of course, 6 credit hours is required in the fall and the spring for the scholarship. We understand that students cannot take necessarily 6 credit hours in the summer, but they do want to progress. And so one of the things that we're thinking about is lowering the credit hour eligibility in the summer to 3 credit hours. And we want to get your feedback on that. Of course, a student can be in 3 credit hours in the first 8 weeks, 3 credit hours in the second 8 weeks. You would count that as 6 credit hours, similar to Pell. Or you could certify the first 3 hours, and then once the student is enrolled in the second 3 hours, go ahead and certify that, bump it up to 6 credit hours. But you could have a situation where you need to claw back money for that 3 credit hours if the student never starts. So I'll pause right there and see if anybody has feedback at this point on summer term and what you would prefer.
Kevin, this is Brandy Massey. I will speak from a programming standpoint. We will do obviously whatever we are asked to do, but it does make it a little bit more challenging at 3 hours. But I understand the need to have it at 3 hours for summer eligibility.
Absolutely appreciate that. Thank you, Brandy. Any general thoughts on what would be preferred? If you want to think about it and give us an email, appreciate that. So we'll move on. Maybe we'll have some questions.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes.
Sorry, Brenda, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say that I would be happy to collect the thoughts of the financial aid community on this. and share them with you. So at this point, I'll ask that the community, any thoughts that you have about it, if you will provide those to me, I'll collect them and share them with Kevin, and give you until the end of the week to do that, if that's okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Brenda. I know it's a lot and it's new information, so you need to think about it a little bit.
And Kevin, all I was gonna say, Zilma had put in the chat 3 credit hours, please, and there's several folks that have liked that comment.
Okay.
And my off the cuff thought, and Brandy may never speak to me again after this, but my off the cuff thought that is, if the halftime requirement for Pell is going away, there's going to be a lot of students that take advantage of that and don't feel like they have to take 6 hours in the summer to get their additional 50% of Pell. And so that 3 credit hour minimum in the summer may benefit a lot of students.
Absolutely. And that was our thinking with that, knowing that the Pell rules were changing in the summer.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else?
I will not kill you. Let me say this. I will not. Trust me. I have learned over the 10 years in this job, we roll with the punches. So we will make it work regardless.
The punches keep coming, right? They never end.
They do. I could take
Yeah.
a few less if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, Brenda, for collecting any of those thoughts and sharing them with us.
Okay. You are welcome.
So I want to move on a little bit. This is what's called a mood board, and this was new to me in the marketing realm, and it might be new to you as well. This is not an advertisement. This is meant to give you a look and feel of what advertisements and a campaign may look like with the colors and the general feel. So I wanted to show this to you today to let you know that this is what the campaign will generally look like. And the timeline for that will be coinciding with the release of the FAFSA. So probably in December, going into January, you'll see marketing efforts ramping up. Kathy Hastings McDonald, who's our outreach and communications person, will be in communication with this. And then also on November the 6th, we'll have a more in-depth presentation at NCASFA on the next NC scholarship. And we'll be talking a lot about the marketing, how we got to the choices that we've made, what to expect, the timeline, what that's going to look like moving forward. So we're excited about that, but at least wanted to show you today the mood board. So you see the next NC scholarship logo there. And then the tagline for the next NC scholarship will be know what you're getting and know where you're going. And that's in the right corner there. So I like this a lot. I hope you guys do. So just wanted to share it with you. We're continuing to do research and move along with APCO. There will be a dedicated page for the next NC scholarship, which will have all of the detailed criteria and eligibility criteria for students and families. It'll also link out to that state aid calculator, to the SAI calculator. So there's a lot of work going into that page right now so that it is a comprehensive, easy to understand page for families and students. And we hope to be able to share that with you soon. But again, more information on that to come. A lot of this is just being developed right now with APCO. And so there's a lot more to come with that, but wanted to give you the look and feel. And I think that's what we have. So again, wanted to give you a very high level overview of where we're at. We're still doing a lot of work, a lot of data analysis. Thank goodness for Andrea Luton. And so wanted to give you that overview and get any feedback, questions that you have.
Are there any questions, comments? I just want to say, Andrea and Kevin, thank you all so much for all that you do for the community colleges. And I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Tracy Mitchell. We value her as our own. And I see that she's just joined the meeting. And if Brandy doesn't catch you up, Tracy, we'll certainly send you the recording so you can listen to it in your own time. But I do want to thank you all so much for your time today. And Kevin, if I get any comments from the group, I'll be sure to forward them to you. Andrea, as we were on the call, I was thinking, that you've certainly been gracious enough to send that information to us, and I got it out to the colleges. But I was wondering if you might be open to doing like some small group trainings. And if you are, I will certainly, any of our colleges, if you're interested in those small group trainings, shoot your information to me and I will forward it on to Andrea. And hopefully we can schedule some small group meetings so that we can know what we're talking about when we're talking to our administrators and sharing that information.
That's a great
there-
idea, Brenda. And thank you so much for distributing the summaries, the reports to all the community colleges.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. There's a question in the chat from Allison Scott wanting to know if someone can explain NC Next.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the question. Thank you. So we did work with APCO Worldwide, which is a marketing firm, and they did a lot of focus groups, research, surveys, one-on-ones with students and parents. And Next NC is meant to be aspirational. So Next speaks to your next journey, whatever that may be after high school, if you're an adult learner. And then North Carolina Scholarship can help you get there. And so this resonated across the board with adult learners, recent high school graduates, families. They understood that terminology. They felt that that was one of the best choices that we could make. And so it's all coming from that marketing research so that it resonates well with North Carolinians. And it's something that they can easily understand and package together with federal aid and understand that they're getting a combination of federal aid and state aid, and this is what it looks like. And so hopefully you can attend the presentation on November 6th, where we'll have Kathy Hastings McDonald, who's been working more closely with APCO on all of this research, and she can give more detail on how we got to that actual name for 24-25. Does that help?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So financial aid community, if you can bear with us just for another maybe 5 minutes on Andrea and Kevin, we will let you have this time back. I know you don't want to listen to our financial aid updates, but we do want to share a couple of updates with you. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Wanda White to just give a briefing on the Golden Leaf Community College Scholarship Program for 23-24, and also the Longleaf Complete Grant Program that ended September 30th.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm going to be very brief, but I did want to just share some information with you. I know that you've been working with us for the last almost 2 years on the Longleaf Complete Grant, and I am in the process of completing the very last report, unless something else comes up and the administration says that we need to do something in addition. So I am at the point now where I'm going to be sending in that last report. Hopefully this afternoon. I have one more college that I'm waiting on hearing back from. But things are going well, and I want to thank all of you, those of you who've received the notices from me in regard to your Longleaf Complete, for being so diligent in sending your information in. I also want to just make a couple of announcements in regard to the Golden Leaf process. I think it's going well. Those of you who are sending in your October report, you have until October the 31st to send those reports in. And I do want to kind of remind you, I know it's a new process, that if you miss sending in a report in September, of course, you didn't have to send in one if you didn't have any awards, but if you made some late in this and didn't send any in September, if you send them in October, they should be included in the October report. We are reporting by months. And so if you have made some awards at the end of September and you want to include it in October, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that they're on your October list. I also want to just mention, I know some of the colleges have sent us emails in regard to the payment, the reimbursement from the business office, our business office, to your college. We have been notified by our business office that there has been some difficulty with our new system. I'm not sure if all of you are aware of it, but the community college system and other state offices have started a new accounting system. And the second transmission of repayments to the colleges was not successful according to our business office. And so these issues are being worked out with the state as well, with our business office and the state. And so hopefully we'll have everything worked out very, very soon. I did get a couple of emails. I think even today I got one asking if they could contact Miss Janice Goodman Long, who is our contact in the business office. It is okay for you to do it. I'm not sure if she's on the line, but she'll be sharing the same information that we've given you. We've contacted her on your behalf, and she has told us that they're working as diligently as they can to correct this process. And as soon as they're able to do so, they will disperse those monies to your colleges. Brenda, did you have any other comments? I'm not sure if Janice is on the call today. Is she?
I don't think she's all today, but
Okay.
what you just stated is from her area.
Yes.
That, yeah, they're just having some issues.
Okay. So yeah, that is definitely something that I wanted to report. I know you all have been diligently getting your reports in. I'm hoping that a letter will go out to your business offices from the community college business office very, very soon if there's a longer delay. But certainly we will keep you apprised of everything that's going on and how soon those reimbursements will be sent to your colleges. And that's the end of my report. I don't have anything detailed. I just want to thank everybody for getting those reports into me. This is a new process, and I would say that it's going well. And also for your end of the year reports. Those of you, if you have any out there that you haven't turned in, they were due on the 11th of October. We encourage you to get it in because we are in the process of compiling that report for Golden Leaf now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White. And I'm just going to start with the Summer Accelerator Grant Program and just reiterate what Dr. White has already said. Of course, that grant ended September 30th, and I do want to thank all of you all for your quick turnarounds in providing the number of students per month. That was a requirement of the governor's office and not just something that the system office made up, but you were certainly very diligent and most prompt in getting that information to us. So thank you so much for that. You all should have received an email from me yesterday that notified you of your North Carolina Child Care Grant allocations for the 23-24 year. We are certainly apologetic that it took so long, but we couldn't provide it to you until we had a state approved budget. Your business office will probably receive an announcement from our finance team here that gives them instructions on how to the purpose code and the vote code and how they are to receive their reimbursements and to actually add that information, your allocation amount, to their budgets. So that may be a separate announcement from our finance team to your colleges, CFOs and business offices. I see the question in the chat and I was just getting ready to touch on that. Zilma, the Targeted Assistance and Less Than Halftime Grant Program, I did send those allocations out to the colleges in March, but as you know, that was part of the 23-24 budget. And I have spoken with my finance department today. I will certainly send the allocations out to the colleges again as soon as we get off the call. But the funding will go to the colleges as soon as our business office can process it. That is usually an electronic transfer to your schools. And from what I have been told, the timing for that is on point, because they normally don't send them out until around October, November anyway. But I'll certainly get your allocations out to you so that you will have that information again. Just a quick reminder, there was an electronic announcement the other day regarding prison education programs. Just want to remind you all that if your college plans to participate, the application is available now, and it ends November 24th of 2023. The application, of course, comes with some instructions, and you may find more information on that on the FSA Partner Connect. You probably received that announcement. Last but not least, we are in the process of preparing for the 23-24 Financial Aid Leadership Academy. And I do want to say thank you to the GTCC team, Lisa Kortoff, and all of the ones that work behind the scene to help make this event affordable and possible for us. Some more information will be coming regarding that soon. So as you are transitioning into new roles, thinking about retiring and have retirements coming up, think about your those that you may want to receive training to learn more about financial aid, reporting, leadership, that type thing for the upcoming Leadership Academy. That is all I have as an update today. I cannot leave this call without saying thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you for all that you do for our students, for your college, for the community college system, and for the wonderful state of North Carolina. If you have any questions for me, certainly unmute your mics or leave them in the chat. Going once, going twice.
Brenda, there's a couple of
Yes.
questions in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
There's one that says, are we getting anything for targeted assistance grant?
Yes, I just addressed that. I will send out the allocations that I sent out to you in March. I'll send them out to you again today. And the funding will be coming soon. That the funding is actually an electronic transfer. I spoke with our finance team today, and it's on schedule to be sent out probably by the end of November is what I'm thinking, with the new system changes,
Okay.
the accounting system.
And there's just one more question. I am getting emails from Robin Ross via otter.ai. Is this something that you're sending out?
No, I am not sending that out. And I've seen some emails as well. So Jason, I'll check into that because I've not sent that out.
There was also a question about short-term workforce development funds. Was there any word on when we should be receiving those?
I will check with our, thank you for that question. I will check with our Workforce Continuing Education Department. I know that the allocations were sent out or approved by the board. I believe it was either August or September, but that is outside of my area, but I will certainly check on it and provide any updates that I can on that, or you may hear from Dr. Andrew Gardner.
Brenda, this is Rachel. I just want to remind everyone to register for NACASFA. We've got a great conference coming up. So October 30th is the last day. We're cutting the registration off at that time. So please register if you have not.
Thank you for that reminder, Rachel. All right. Okay, we've taken 15 minutes more of your time than we anticipated, but this was a great meeting. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and you all enjoy the rest of your day.